I will make introductions. Um, so Shay, we are good to go, right?
Yes, Kingsley, go ahead.
Okay. Welcome to yet another episode of our tech careers talk. And today we promises to be very exciting. We have very exciting person in the building, and by the name of Charles Joko. Um, Charles Joko is a platform UX designer for ALX Africa, and he's the co-founder and CPO, that's Chief Product Officer of Spray. If you are familiar, if you are very
Fire.
if you are on Twitter, you probably have come across him if you don't already follow the master himself. So he's going to be talking to us um, on everything products, and we're going to be learning a lot from this particular program. So I'm going to be handing over to Charles in a few seconds. So Charles, you have the floor.
Hi guys, give me a moment. The lighting in my room is bad. Let me adjust that. Okay. Hello everybody. My name is Charles Njoku, as he rightly said. Um, yeah, I am a UX designer, practical UX lead at ALX Africa. ALX Africa uh, is part of the African Leadership International Group, headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya. But aside that, I am also I, I actually don't like saying CEO, probably like Chief Errand Officer at Spire. He called it Spirit, but it's Spire, please. Anytime if you hear it's Spire, that's the correct pronunciation. So today I'll be going over a collaborative approach to product thinking for engineers and designers. Engineers and designers mostly make up um, bulk of product teams. I hope you guys can see my screen clearly. Is my screen clear?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. So aside of ALX, I also am a member of the Asha Kuteri um, community. And one of the key things to do at Asha is really grow the design ecosystem in Nigeria. Some of the best designers you know out there are members of our community, and some of also the most interestingly upcoming designers as well are from our community. Like I said, I'm the chief errand and bricklaying officer at Spire. So anything my people say I should do, that's what I do, and as well as helping building what Spire will become. Also, I'm also building Picture. A few people might have heard of it, and that Picture, what we're trying to do is to make freely available Nigerian images for anyone, absolutely free of charge. So think of Unsplash for Nigeria. Added to that, we are also building Bavatars. We call it Bavatars. It's a free crowdsourced avatar platform where you get to donate your avatar that can be used in products and apps. One of the most biggest problem is discover that people build apps and then you see one white guy has the avatar in their mockup. So that's what we're doing in Avatar. This slide is going to be shared, and all of the buttons here are clickable, so you can always click them and see what I'm doing around that. So yeah, what are we doing today? I want to first start with what's product thinking. I think a lot of people have varying definitions, but yeah, for me, there are three core components to product thinking. And the first one for me would be the problem. So one of the key aspects of product thinking is being able to determine the problem that your users are looking to solve. And I mean, over time, and even in my experience, 99% of the time, users are likely to uninstall apps that don't really solve their problem. You the designer or whoever built it might think, oh yeah, solve this problem. But if I download it and it doesn't solve my problem, there's a high chance I would uninstall it. You get users can tolerate, oh, it's slow or it's that, which is a different topic for another day. But if it solves the problem, you most likely will see them at least stay. We have numerous bad applications spread across the ecosystem, but at the same time, we discover that because this product in one way or the other solves the problem that maybe some other app doesn't solve, people still stick around with it though. We get, but if it doesn't solve, no matter how beautiful or how fast it is, if it doesn't solve the problem, people would uninstall it. There's no brainer about it. And so one of the key aspects of product thinking is defining the problem. What really is the problem? The problem is not what you say it is. You get the problem is not what you assume or think it is. The problem is actually what the user says it is. Anything the user say, now this one ain't be worrying me. That's the problem you get. And a lot of the time, what product thinking helps you do is to define to really define the problem in a way that allows you to solve it. You get. And so my mantra, and I mean, one of the people I always look up to their work and it really inspired me, Steve Jobs. He would always say, think problem first, not solution first. And anytime Steve Jobs makes that statement, he's referring a lot to the amount of work that needs to go into actually understanding the problem. If you ever hear, we probably say users are dumb, yeah? Trust me, one of the persons that pioneer those kind of statements is Steve Jobs. And he isn't saying users are dumb in the sense that that they don't have sense. He's saying that sometimes even users do not know how to articulate what the problem is. But again, it's not your job, it's not their job. It's your job to actually really think hard. And that, for me, this is probably like one of the core power of product thinking. You get. Another very core aspect in product thinking is who has this problem, who is currently experiencing this problem, who currently needs us to look at this problem. You get. So I would always say that, for example, users are the problem too, because a user can tell you that my problem is lifting the cup. You get. If you show that user, if you solve lifting the cup, you get. There's a high chance that if you solve it the way the user doesn't like, you have not solved their problem. So the problem of a user is lifting the cup here. Imagine you go ahead and say, oh, you know what? We'll design a forklift that would help that user lift that cup. You get. Do you know you've created a complexity of problem? The user doesn't know how to use a forklift. The forklift is probably very complex. You get. And so this boils down to the fact that now you know that a problem is lifting the cup. You get. Another problem you need to understand is even the person who you're solving it for. How does that user want to lift the cup? What's the most convenient way for them to use the cup? And it feels like it has solved the problem. You get. So thinking about the problem from as an isolation of the user is often one of the biggest problems that happens with several products. You see 4 different products launched at different times. but performing differently. Some fold up and can never continue again. And someone else comes into the market and they're killing it. Aside, there's so many other factors, capital, network, marketing, and all of that. At the core is that business understanding who their users is. Who are they solving this problem for? The way, for example, if you build one of the biggest problems with financial apps in Nigeria is the context for a lot of us as regards finance stems from the point of distrust. You get survey 100 people and they will tell you their biggest problem with most financial apps is they don't trust it. What will happen to my money if this happens? And with the numerous cases that have come up with fraud and all of that, and that's why a lot of fintechs, the ones that really know what they are doing, are optimizing for security. You see, the initial problem this fintech went out to solve is probably an app that they use and save money or invest to and all of that. Nothing about security was the issue. But now you see that for the user, for the customer, you have not solved just moving their money from one point to another or putting it. So someone's screeching there, sorry. Just putting that money in their account, giving them interest and all of that. It's one part of solving the problem. You get assuring them of security of their money is almost as big as saving the money itself, because if you can't assure a user of security, then you literally telling them that you can lose your money any deal. In fact, they will rather go and spend hours digging the ground and putting their money inside than coming to give you. Yeah. So when product thinking helps you look at the problem and also who you're solving it for, how does this person, what does a solution or what does solving this problem means to this person, to the user in itself, you get. And like I said again, users can be dumb. Sometimes they can't articulate accurately what their problems are. It is your job, either as a product person, as a designer, or as an engineer, to collaborate across skill sets to help define this. I am very sure that even, except for the sake of feedback, a lot of the guys building new features into their products you get did not think about it from the get-go. Their initial plan was, we just want to help these people move money from here to here. You get, now they are thinking of, how do we make sure that the person we are moving money from here to here is a verified user? How do we also ensure that the money actually moves from here to here? How do we make sure that somebody does not intercept it in between? How do we make sure that when the money has moved from here to here, both parties have ways to verify that this has happened? You get, this is the kind of thing no user would open their mouth and tell you. Even if you get feedback that you can infer from, the truth is majority of your research in the long term will never tell you all of this. And that is why product thinking helps uncover all of this. The next thing, so successful brands focus on users and not buyers. And this statement is probably controversial considering the fact that a lot of businesses are always looking for revenue. In fact, revenue defines a business in the long term. You get, if you're not making money, to be honest, nobody's going to call you a business. Probably call you like an NGO, you get, or something. But what this statement essentially means is, I would give you an example of Apple. You would never see Apple come on their launch days, where they launch their products and talk about their financials, or how many people are buying their product, or how many people are paying them, or how much they're making. And it's not because they can't do that, But if there's anything I've understood about Apple, even as a brand, is they are so obsessed about the user. They are so, because for them it's like, if we can get you to see the value, if we can get you to use an Apple product, you will pay for it. I won't use an iPhone 12 if I can't pay for it. You get. So before even paying for it, I have been so wowed by how much an iPhone can do. My Mac, I wouldn't get it if I do not think, oh, there's just something about it that makes me, I need to use a Mac, I need to use an iPhone, I need to use an iPad. You get. So for Apple, it's that overwhelming need. Like, they make sure that you feel like if you don't use it, you are missing out on something. You get. And even for people who can't afford it now, trust me, go and ask them. They're aspiring to get to a point where they can. Some people are saving on every blessed month so that at the end of the year they can give themselves a Mac or an iPhone. And that's because for Apple, they have been able to, they literally understand this entire thing about focusing on the user, focusing on the fact that you need us, you need this product. And this is some of the things that very, very strategic and extensive product thinking would help you on earth. Because like I said, if you get people to use your product, if you get it to solve their problem, then they will buy. The next thing I want to talk about is experience. Part of product thinking is, by the time you've understood the problem and who the problem is attributed to, one of the most important things you now have to do is, how do you build the understanding of that experience, the understanding of the problem and who the problem is, who actually has the problem, you get. And so this is where the conversations around how do we solve it, how has the user been solving this problem, what are the things we can do to simplify the process, excite the user, take them from point A to point B. What is the journey, the customer journey from, when the user, the channel the user use and enter the experience till the end of the experience. And there's something I always say, that UX design mirrors life, you get. And it is because what is user experience in itself, you get. The experience of the user from, the moment they engage you up to doing everything they have to do to solve a problem, get a task done, or that solves their problem. And when you look at life generally, is each and everything we do is geared towards solving the problem. You get, when you have to wake up, because that's the only sense or sign that shows you are alive. You get that experience of waking up leaves you have to shower in the morning. You don't want to smell, yeah. In fact, just about everything you do is about building a desired experience, you get. And this is the same with experience design. You get, everything you get a user to do, you get, all accumulate to build that experience of solving their problem. You get, exciting them, getting them to come back again. You get. So just that understanding would allow you put yourself in the user's shoes. I am this guy with this problem. How would I want to feel? How would I want to go from here to here to solve my problem? Just understanding that gives you perspective. Product thinking really, really kind of helps you dig deep into this. Experience versus perception. See, the biggest problem is when designers, engineers, and everybody start talking on a product, to be honest, it's just perception. You get. They are literally projecting themselves into the product. In very rare cases, is this actually useful? But in a lot of time, it actually causes huge disconnect between what the product eventually becomes and what the user expected the product to be. You get. So my advice is always to focus on what would be the experience of that user, and this is where your user research, your analysis, all of the things you do comes together to really give you that actionable insight that tells you this is how you can solve this problem for this user. Shameless plug here. This is exactly why we are building Spire. You get. We understand that the core fundamental to actually even starting all of this process is hearing from the user. And so that's why we are building Spire. We're making it very, very easy for businesses and just about anyone to be able to collect feedback, learn what their customer or user really, really wants, you get, see how they interact with their product, and go on to really build what those users want. At the core of everything we do at Spire, this is what it means. This is what we're really looking to build. Shameless plug here again. So yeah, product thinking helps you do that, and hopefully in the future you are able to use Spire to be able to unearth some of these key points that you would find useful in your product experience. So, so why collaboration? I mean, to be honest, every time I hear collaboration, people don't want to accept it, but sometimes it means dropping your ego at the door. You get, and I mean, and ego in this sense is both even your how well known you think you are, or how well read you think you are. You get, you mostly have to start from the point of listening. You get, especially when you're working in a team. And I just want to point out something. What it means by dropping your ego at the door also is killing every preconceived notion you get, and also listening. This is this is a table from a product manager at, I think, Shopify. He created this table and was talking about how engineers think and what the actual problem is from their finding. You get. So I mean, the customer wants to quickly search products from a catalog of millions of items. You get, that's the problem. But guess what? If you tell an engineer, this is also is already thinking, oh, it text research in the indexing and data structure, etc., etc. That's what an engineer is thinking, to be honest. But the problem with this kind of thinking is, if he gets to build this and it takes a user more up to 10 clicks to solve that problem, you have not actually solved the problem. You get. The problem is to first start with easy and fast. And easy sometimes doesn't mean, oh, it is obvious. Because to be honest, common sense fails a lot of times. You get. Easy is thinking as a user, how would you normally search for items? What's your mental model? So you walk into a place, you look for something. What's your first thinking? Just being able to understand how a user thinks, you get to easily find stuff, can influence how you can actually build to solve the actual problem. You get, there are so many different problems you can look at here, and you would see how an engineer sees it. The problem is none of these things the engineer is doing here, the user does not care about it. How many users out there know anything about data structure or MySQL or data query or querying a database or what's it called, using filters or tags or and all those technical jargons? The user doesn't really care, to be honest. You get. So this is why product thinking is important. You get. Understanding what the engineer sees, understanding what the actual problem is, taking all of that and building what really becomes a solution. So why is it important? To be honest, the core attitude is you build products people want. And people probably trivialize this because thinking, oh, I have an idea, boom, let's go and build it. But the problem is, a lot of people have ideas. A lot of product has been built every day, and a lot of people do not use it. You get. So the one way to succeed is to build stuff that people want. And to be honest, product thinking is at the center of how to collaborate to do this. And I like to put it this way here. The designer or the researcher on the team, it is their sole responsibility to uncover all of these findings you get. I think I always want to loop in all the engineers I've worked with. I always want to loop them into the thinking process. Just before this call, I was with my colleague who's a senior engineer on our team, and I was taking him through what an actual flow for what you're building looks like and why it is important, each stop points, all of that. To be honest, a lot of engineers would not want to sit in that meeting. They wouldn't want to see it. You get. They would want you to just almost go and design screen and come and give them. You get. And then they go and build beans. Thank God my own engineer does not build beans. I pray for you today. You will not meet engineer that will build beans for you. Amen. Amen. But yeah, but the importance of that process is he gets to see how I am thinking. He also gets, for example, he has access to all my user research findings. You get all my feedback tracker, everything. He has access, and I always point back to something. If I'm trying to justify why we need to build stuff, you get, we go back as far back as to what feedback led to this thinking. You get, what did you learn from the user when they were thinking that way, and how do we think? What's the hypothesis that this feature or this new flow sort of like solve for that problem? You get, it is the best kind of engineers understand these things, and they always want to be in the know, because when they start thinking in even technical and logical terms, you get, they are thinking, what is the best technical approach to solving for this problem? Now they understand the problem. You get, they are not thinking of solution, because the solution to finding stuff is putting it in a data structure, blah, 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 and giving people filter and dark somewhere. But by the time he understands how the customer or the user is thinking about it, you get, he's thinking, do we build on top of all of this some sort of assistant that helps them even navigate through the different levels of what they are looking for? That sort of thinking now starts even sort of inspiring them to open up their technical abilities and see what they can build, you get, to really, really solve the customer's problem, and not just some higgy haga. So yeah, product thinking gives you 10 times more clarity and very, very high level focus. You get to know what to focus on. The other small things around there are not your business. You really, really just focus on what needs to solve the customer's problem. You get. And also, when doing product thinking, you just don't go off the bat doing product thinking. One of the key deliverables after a product thinking session is setting key metrics, you get, and they are in real time and you are intentional. And so that when you start, those metrics are how you even know that the product is solving the user's problem. You get engagement, usage, even your feedback loop and all of that. You get, product thinking helps you define all of that. And also, an intense product thinking session would reduce elongated processes, would even help you cut. There are so many things in fact, for example, if I know a user already knows how to use a feature, my engineering team will not spend resources building a very extensive onboarding process. You get, because from the research, we already know that these users we are targeting, you get, this is their mental model. And so there are some things that are not be needed. It helps you save a lot from engineering resources to what's it called, even web services that you think you need, you get why you don't need. It also helps you understand the market you're in and prepare for changes, because product thinking is not a one-time thing or one-off thing. True, as long as the product is in the market, as long as there are people alive on earth, you would always continue to think. As long as people continue to evolve, because the key thing there is, as people evolve, their desires and wants change. The problem becomes even a lot complex. And that's why it's important to start from first principle, because first principle allows you to build from like the most basic of things and follow up with how that user grows. And I mean, on top of that, builds the complexity you get. And so this is what product thinking allows you to do. And yes, really, all of this is true. Quote me anywhere. So that's the end of my session. My name is Charles, and thank you. I guess next, I'm open for questions and feedback.
That was a very great session, Charles. We enjoyed every bit of it, and me especially, I don't know about every other person. I also learned lots from it. Yeah, so there are questions that are on YouTube and here. So please can the mentors that are here can help us to post those questions on the chat, so Charles can take them one after the other. So one of the questions here from Chinedu KK is, do you believe designers need to have an understanding of engineering terms to become better, to become a better product designer?
So answering that question is kind of going to the long age battle of should designers code. But here's what I would tell you. The best designers I've ever worked with, the best people I know, are people who do not see their job as in terms of their skills. They see what they need to do as in terms of solving a problem. And so if I am communicating to my engineer and he doesn't seem to understand and we're having backlog and back and forth, if the solution is to, you know what, tell me, how do you solve this issue? Let me know what you're thinking, and I go back and say, oh, okay, I see this is how you're seeing it, but this is how we can see it, and this is how it solves the problem. It saves everybody, to be honest. And so it doesn't really matter if, what's it called, you are learning engineering terms or not. What matters is you are doing what needs to be done to solve the problem. Every designer and everybody that's ever worked with me, I tell them, I never want to have conversations about your skill set. I want to really see you obsess about the problem. And obsessing about the problem means you doing what it takes to solve the problem. And no, I'm not saying go and learn how to code. You have an engineer for that. But if you need to understand, for example, how data structures work, at least at the peripheral level of things, it would even help you on how you collect your data from your customer and even how you structure your entire interface. Because now you understand how the engineer thinks of the data structure of your entire program. So, like I said, if you really want to be in between that sweet spot of not just being a designer, and more or less like a product person, then you have to think about how things work, even from the technical side of things.
Great, that was a nice one. So there are other questions. The another question in here is, what do we do if engineers don't want to join the research process?
Do you want me to tell you to fire them? But so, have I ever worked with engineers who don't want to be involved in the research process? I think when we say being involved in the research process, I think a lot of times what I've seen people do is getting maybe engineers to come and look at your extensive documents you're writing, or joining your user one-on-one interviews and all of that. Like I said, if you listen when I was presenting, how engineers see things oftentimes are different. You get, so maybe getting them involved in the research process is not exactly getting them involved. It's you actually simplifying your research process for them to see what you're thinking about the customer. So, for example, I did close to 27 interviews. You get, my spreadsheet is over how many rows with how many columns, with plenty data and all of that. You get, if I send out to my engineer, the guy will tell you, you think I don't have other things to do, that I'll come and be reading this thing. But what did I do? I synthesized all of that into very, very, visual flows. He can see what the user, where the user is at from start to finish. You get, that kind of presentation for me already gets them involved. You get, he's now thinking of the customer the way I'm thinking of the customer now. You get, so if getting them involved is sending them loads and loads of all the things you are finding or more, even me, if I'm an engineer, I will not join.
Hmm, great. What you just mentioned uh, just reminded me of when, if you are doing a session, maybe an ideation session, and you want your engineers to leave the algorithms to come and sit in with you. You just have to make the session simple and interactive, and also make other people to want to join you. They will be eager to join you and ask you when is the next session. So is another question: what aspects of the research process should we include the engineers?
Again, again, um, I would say that the goal is not to include them in any specific part of the research process. The goal is to put together very insightful understanding of everything you are doing in research to them. More or less like, tell them a story. See, when a war happens, yeah, so many things go into a war, from the preparation, the training, the what's called long nights, the building of infrastructure, the putting of guns together, the transporting, and all of that. You get, but when you read a story about a war, nobody goes into those details. Nobody goes to tell you whether it is Chukuma from Abakaliki that transported coal to Yusuf in Kanu. Nobody goes into all of those details when telling a story. You get, rather they tell you a story that leaves your imagination to do the rest. And that is how I feel like we should actually get to work with engineers. You get, sell them the story of what you're learning in your research. Let them sit back and say, so this is how this customer is thinking this thing. So how do I use my technical ability? Because engineers are trained to actually solve problems. They are hardly ever trained to think about the problem. You get, one of the core things engineers do is solving the problem. So they are learning all the libraries, all the frameworks, everything, just because they need to solve a problem. It is your job to make them understand the problem. You get, and so part of doing that is selling them the story of that problem that leaves their imagination to do the rest.
Great answer. Um, As a designer, how do you suggest one networks to get to the top quickly as possible? So I
There's no.
wants to get to the top.
There isn't exactly a defined part you get, and I'm saying this because, to be honest, if we are equating how much we have put into the work we do and where we are at the moment, some of us would to be sincerely not be here. You get, um, for example, myself, I'm a, I was born into a traditional, what's it called, tech family. I like very very rudimentary tech, and as far as typewriter, my mom used to be a typist. You get, one of the best. I mean, I've seen, I personally have witnessed. You get, and this is as far back as manual typewriter. You get, and so imagine me being born into that and growing up to see computers, photocopiers, up until working in my dad's printing press. You get, and now I'm doing um, advanced tech in a different field. Point is, for someone like me, you get, getting to the top has not necessarily been my focus. You get, because I shall know I will get there. But for a lot of people, it's different. And so it means sometimes they have to even do more work. You get, I know people who, I tell people that if I want to go as far back as when I was doing rudimentary tech, yeah, I probably have over 10 years of experience doing all of the shit I'm doing. You get, I can tell you for a fact that people who have just been here for 1 year and they're probably working in places that have rejected my own application. You get, so I would say that think about how much impact you want to make. I always tell people you don't need to learn everything, you only need to learn what's important. Yeah, and what's important varies, to be honest. What's important varies from where you currently are in your career, the places you're working at, and where you're looking to go. You get, I could remember 3 years ago, what was important for me was probably even was doing front end engineering. Yeah, I was learning literally everything, like way down to HTML, CSS. You get, I started like from the scratch, and now what you get. But I left all of that and moved into a more product focused career path. You get, and so what's important at the different points of a career can tell how far you want to go. The constant advice you hear is network, belong to a community. I mean, reach out and ask questions as much as possible. Put out your work out there, hype yourself. You get, those are like constant advice, and you should actually take them. You get, they really do help.
Great, great. We're going to skip the other question. As a designer, keep beating that question. So another question: if users are dumb, that's not an insult actually. Are they and they are unable to express the things they truly need? What steps can we take to truly solve the problems since we are likely not explaining it well? Uh,
Yeah, so it's your job as a UX designer to really dig deep in, and that's why there are various research techniques to use to really help with discovery. You get, from semi-structured interviews to focus groups, sorry, excuse me, to diary sessions. Like, each problem comes with different complexities, and there's no one way of really finding out that. So it depends on who you're talking to. So, for example, I will tell you one of the most trickiest places to actually do research is healthcare. It is tricky and also very dangerous. You get, because if you for any reason assume and miss out on some of the very important details, you get, the user is passing, you literally putting people's life on risk. You get. So if I'm thinking of solving a healthcare tech-enabled problem for, say, people with cardiovascular issue, it is an unspoken, almost like no user is going to tell you that whatever you do, you almost have to be able to react in real time. You get. You don't have more than 30 to 1 minute if there's a cardiovascular crisis. You get. And so if you are building a solution for that, you are all like, I mean, no, the customer or the user you're interviewing is not going to tell you, oh, make sure your app is able to respond or be able to send emergency message in 1 second. No user is going to let you know that. They're just going to tell you, oh, when I have heart pain or a heart attack, I usually would, if I don't, what's it called, maybe take my medication early enough, the pain increases. The user did not tell you, oh, you need to make your app you need to make me to be able to get to my medication fast. They just told you their problem. It is your job as the designer to now look in deep into all of that and build out a process that truly solves. And that could mean minimizing all of the barriers and friction that the user needs to get to from point A to point B that solves their problem. You get. So, like I said, a lot of times when we say users are dumb, it means they won't literally come and tell you what to do. And to be honest, a reverse of the case is that users either also make us dumb. You get, because it means now we have to keep everything about the assumptions we know and really, really listen like, okay.
Okay. That was nice. That was great. There's so many questions. Let's take a few more before we round up. How do you advise a junior designer with graphics design background to arrange his or her portfolio in order to land a product design job?
Graphic design and product design are two different fields. You can, if you send me a graphic design portfolio and you want to work in product design, except I'm looking for an intern I want to, train or anything. And even with interns, to be honest, I rather would go for someone who at least a few months of UX design experience. You get, because the only thing graphic design can tell me is if you understand basic design principles. You get. You cannot tell me if you can think as a product designer. Brand design thinking and product design thinking intertwined, but in the long term, you will be asked for example, some of the techniques you would use to really, really answer some of the questions you have during product design is very different from how you would answer. Because for me, I used to be a graphic designer. In fact, I was traditionally a graphic designer from doing editorials and working in my dad's printing press. You get. So I understand. Let me just give you my experience. So what did I do when I wanted to transition into product design? I took product design. I knew that one of the key things for a product designer is you need to have good user research skills. You need to have user experience design skills. You need to have good visual design skills. And all of that. And so what did I do? The first thing I did was to attempt a UI design. I started learning UI design way from, in fact, I competed. There was this contest on IG by these guys, LIE Creative. I came second. I was to design a website for Nigeria, like a country's website. You get nigeria.gov.ng. I think still in my Behance even. You get. that was my first attempt at UI design. Now, today, if I go and look at that stuff, there are so many UX mistakes with what I did. But the point is, for them, it was important I understand what a UI is and how to build UIs. You get, and then it didn't take long. A few months later, I delved into research. I was so obsessed with research. You get, my first UX designer job. How did I land it? The question was to sort of write a review on a platform and what I would change. You get, I spent intensive time. I built a 10-page review document. I won't do that this time around. Stressful, you get. But it just went on to show how much I gave into really understanding the product, you get, and then giving my feedback, drawing everything down. The first person who hired me was Deji. He's a very great guy, Triumph Networks. And when we sat down to speak, one of the things he pointed out was he really, really enjoyed that I was obsessed with the details. That's how you know someone is really good with research, you get. And I was given my first job off the back of only having designed interfaces before. You get, and at the time, learning like very core research work. And that was when I was able to even transition into UX design for. And by the time I was doing the job actively, I started some of the things I was learning, I started practicing it. So you can't off the bat send in a graphic design portfolio. You must have to at least show a track of your transition to product design. You get, the only thing your graphic design background would do is tell that, oh, you understand basic design principles.
Yeah, that's great. I think I interviewed someone. Um, I think I interviewed someone that has this particular issue. His graphic work was awesome, great, but his UI was not good, and he couldn't get the role just because he didn't show exactly the transition process. So your points are very, 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 very valid. I think we are going to take two more. If you can take that under a minute, and that will be fine. For a designer, how can you avoid the possible bias of no longer solving the problem for the users, but projecting your own ideas directly as solutions? What methods can you use to mitigate against this?
Oh, continue to look at your research. Anytime you always know when you have a bias, to be honest. It makes you feel good. You like feels like you have this eureka or anything. And that's why you document. You document because you go back to justify what's it called? What you have built so far. And also metrics is important. They are key, set your key objectives. So if I'm building a feature, there's a key metric here. You get bias sometimes it's not bad. You get, so for example, if I assume something and put in my bias, but it goes ahead to answer the key metric. So if the key metric is to improve engagement on a part of the website or an app, and and I'm like, you know what? Let us add one small interaction design or maybe one sweet animation to this thing and let's see if it works. That's my bias. That's a bias. You get, the user probably didn't tell you that. But if you see, if you could get lucky, and to be honest, that's probably the game changer. You go and look at your engagement is spiked over 200% from the last time you had the former feature. You get, point is, like you said, the one thing to always look at is where you're taking insight from and your results. Once you look at your results, it tells you whether you're really performing. That's why I said sometimes bias is not exactly bad, but just it's always important to make sure it's like the least thing you're focusing on.
Great. Um, Thank you for that. Please, please, as a designer, the last question here: how do I get creative ideas for a project?
Oh, I personally get creative ideas by looking at other designers' work. My friends are designers themselves, and trust me, they come up with a new project, and I mean, at least they drop me a link. I might not get time to go through it at the time, but when I'm looking for inspiration, I have hundreds of links to look at. You get. I'm careful not to get confused or overly influenced by making sure I have in mind what I'm looking for. You get. I have something in mind that I'm looking for, and when I start looking at those links or inspiration, um, I'm focused on just getting that, and probably any other thing that shows up. But yeah, Behance, Dribble, just talking to people sometimes even gives you inspiration.
Great. I think I will also, as a designer myself, I will also like to answer my own way of getting inspired. So what I usually do is I write out everything I need for a particular page. So I start with the very basics. So I think what most people, especially designers, do that makes the project not to end is they try to be very, very innovative at first. You can do something basic, very, very simple, and build on it to make it to tweak some little things, shift some things, and make it look unique. So that's for me. I think our time is up, and we have to let Mr. Charles go. And we thank you very, very much for this wonderful um, session. Um, and we're going to get the slide across to the students at Zuri. And from all of us at Zuri, we thank you very, very much, Charles, for
Welcome.
this particular session. We will see you in the highway.
Yeah, it was
So,
good. It
guys,
was good doing this. It was good doing this.
yeah, yeah, it was great. Um, so, guys, thank you very much for joining in. You can check him out as charlesonjoko.com. Can also follow him
My
on
Twitter is
Twitter
made by
at
Charles.
exactly at made by Charles. And yeah, that's it. I don't know whether he welcomes DMs, so just you can engage with him on the timeline, and he's sure to respond. So that's basically it for today. Thank you very much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed this session, and we'll be having, if the program is still on by then, we'll be having another session some other time with different different speaker. And thank you very much for always joining in. And this is me saying